Have you ever spent hours, days, or even years trying to help someone who just didn't seem to want it? I know I have. I remember vividly a time when I was younger, full of energy and optimism, thinking that with the right advice, encouragement, or even a little tough love, I could change someone's life for the better. I would tirelessly offer solutions, point out opportunities, try to nudge them in the right direction. And for a long time, I believed I was doing the noble thing. But as I grew older, I realized something profoundly simple, yet life-changing. Not everyone wants help, and trying to force it is often a waste of our own precious time and energy. When I first heard a wise 70-year-old say, "Don't waste time fixing people who don't want help," it struck me like a lightning bolt. It wasn't a harsh statement, it was compassionate in its honesty. It made me look at all the relationships, all the efforts, all the energy I had spent on people who weren't ready, willing, or open to change. Suddenly, I understood that my frustration, my disappointment, and even my hurt often stemmed not from them, but from my own expectations. The first thing I learned is that acceptance is powerful. Accepting that someone may not want or be ready for help doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we stop trying to control outcomes that aren't ours to control. I remember a colleague of mine who was caught in a cycle of self-destructive behavior. I spent months offering advice, sending resources, and even giving up weekends to help. I thought I was being a good friend. But it wasn't until I accepted that he had to choose change for himself that I felt a sense of peace. The energy I had been pouring into him, an energy that left me drained and frustrated, could now be redirected to things and people who were receptive, things that actually mattered. This isn't easy, especially if you're a naturally empathetic or nurturing person. We want to fix, to solve, to heal, because it feels good to feel needed and useful. But here's the subtle truth: constantly trying to fix someone who isn't asking for help can trap us in disappointment. It can make us resentful, exhausted, and even disconnected from our own lives. I remember a period when I was focused so much on helping a family member that I neglected my own health, my own friendships, even my own hobbies. I was present physically, but emotionally and mentally, I was absent from my own life. Another key insight is learning the difference between offering support and taking responsibility for someone else's choices. Offering support can be as simple as listening without judgment, being there when asked, or sharing your experiences as a gentle guide, not as a blueprint or a rulebook. I once had a neighbor who struggled with managing finances. I suggested workshops, budgeting apps, even scheduled reminders for them. Every attempt to intervene was met with frustration and resistance. Eventually, I had to step back and simply say, "I'm here if you ever want help." The change in our relationship was immediate. I felt lighter, and our interactions became genuinely supportive, rather than tense and loaded with unspoken expectations. We also have to consider the energy we give as a finite resource. Time, attention, and emotional labor are all limited, especially as we age. Every minute spent trying to change someone who isn't ready is a minute we're not investing in ourselves, in our health, and friendships, or in pursuits that bring us joy and fulfillment. I started keeping a mental inventory of where I was spending my emotional energy. I asked myself, is this person open to growth, or am I forcing something that isn't theirs to take yet? This practice wasn't about cold detachment, it was about conscious, intentional living. What's liberating about this realization is that it doesn't make us selfish. In fact, it allows us to cultivate deeper, more meaningful connections with those who do value our guidance and care. I began noticing that the people who were open to advice, support, or guidance responded with gratitude, growth, and reciprocity. Our relationships became balanced and nourishing instead of draining. I remember feeling a renewed sense of joy and purpose, simply because my efforts were aligned with willingness, not resistance. Lastly, there's a subtle but important lesson about patience. Change takes time, and sometimes the people we care about will come around, but only when they're ready. Accepting this doesn't mean giving up hope or love, it means trusting in the natural rhythm of human growth. Trying to rush it, forcing it, or imposing it can break relationships rather than strengthen them. I found that when I adopted patience, my interactions became calmer, more respectful, and surprisingly, more influential. People often change more when they feel supported without pressure. So as we reflect on this, I invite you to consider your own life. Are there people you've been trying to fix who aren't ready for your help? Are there relationships where your good intentions are met with resistance, frustration, or indifference? What would it feel like to redirect that energy toward yourself, toward growth, health, and happiness? It's not about giving up. It's about choosing wisely where to invest your care and attention. Life is too short to be spent trying to save those who aren't willing to be saved. And in that wisdom, there's freedom. Now that we've explored the importance of acceptance, setting boundaries, and the power of redirecting our energy, let's move into how to put this into action in real-life situations, so your kindness becomes effective and your life more peaceful. And feel that these insights are meaningful. Please type number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and don't forget to turn on the bell, so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos designed to uplift, inform, and inspire. Your support truly means a lot. It's what keeps us going and allows us to continue sharing thoughtful, helpful content just for you. Now, let's continue this journey together. Now that we've reflected on the importance of accepting that some people may not want help, let's talk about how to navigate this in real life. Because understanding this principle is one thing, but applying it day to day is where the real transformation happens. Over the years, I've learned a few practical strategies that make this shift easier, and I want to share them with you. The first is recognizing the subtle signs that someone isn't open to change. This doesn't always mean outright rejection. Sometimes it's quiet resistance, excuses, or even passive-aggressive responses. I remember a friend of mine who constantly complained about her health habits. She wanted to feel better, but whenever I suggested small, actionable steps, she would brush them off or rationalize why it couldn't work for her. At first, I felt frustrated, thinking, why won't you just listen? But over time, I realized that her words were her way of expressing feelings without actually being ready to take action. Recognizing this early on allowed me to save myself from unnecessary stress. Once you can identify these signs, the next step is to set healthy boundaries. Boundaries don't mean cutting people off or being unkind. They mean protecting your own emotional and mental energy. I learned to politely decline to give advice when it wasn't requested, and to limit discussions on topics where I knew the other person wasn't receptive. For instance, if someone repeatedly rejected suggestions about improving their finances, I might listen empathetically but refrain from offering solutions unless they asked. Doing so was liberating. I wasn't abandoning them, I was simply redirecting my energy in a healthier way. Another powerful approach is offering support without attachment to outcomes. This might sound abstract at first, but it's simpler than it seems. Imagine you're planting a garden. You can water the seeds, provide sunlight, and nurture them, but you cannot force the flowers to bloom on your schedule. People are much the same. We can offer guidance, share wisdom, and provide encouragement, but we cannot dictate when, or even if, someone will change. This mindset shifts the responsibility for growth back to them, freeing you from the weight of trying to control outcomes. I also want to touch on the importance of self-awareness. Knowing your own limits, motivations, and emotional triggers is crucial. I've often found that when I feel an overwhelming need to fix someone, it's a signal to pause and reflect. Am I motivated by genuine concern for their well-being, or am I trying to prove my worth, validate my ideas, or avoid my own discomfort? Understanding your own motives allows you to respond with clarity, compassion, and wisdom instead of frustration. Communication is another key element. Learning to express yourself clearly without judgment or expectation creates healthier interactions. I began practicing phrases like, I care about you, and I'm here if you ever want help, or, I understand this is your choice, and I respect it. These simple statements acknowledge the person's autonomy while keeping the door open for connection. They communicate love and respect without the burden of obligation or pressure. It's also important to cultivate patience. People often change on their own timeline, and it might take years, or even decades, for someone to be ready to accept guidance. This doesn't mean waiting passively, but rather maintaining a supportive presence without forcing intervention. I've noticed that, over time, those who were once resistant sometimes return to seek advice or help when they are ready. And when that happens, the relationship is stronger because it is grounded in choice, not coercion. One of the most profound lessons I've learned is the value of redirecting your energy toward your own growth. Instead of investing excessive time and effort into changing others, focus on your own health, relationships, hobbies, and passions. I started dedicating time to exercise, creative projects, and friendships that were mutually nurturing. The more I invested in myself, the more I felt at peace, and interestingly, my relationships with resistant individuals also improved, not because I forced change, but because I approached interactions with calmness, detachment, and clarity. Lastly, let's not underestimate the power of letting go emotionally. Carrying resentment, frustration, or guilt over someone else's unwillingness to change can weigh heavily on your spirit. By releasing these feelings, we create space for joy, peace, and more meaningful connections. I remember thinking, if I can let go of trying to fix everyone, I can finally enjoy life on my own terms. And that shift, small at first, but powerful over time, transformed not only my relationships but my sense of self-worth and freedom. So, in practical terms, the middle steps are clear: recognize resistance early, set boundaries, offer support without attachment, communicate compassionately, cultivate patience, focus on your own growth, and release emotional burdens. These steps aren't just theoretical, they're actionable ways to live a lighter, more joyful, and intentional life. As we continue, we'll explore the final piece of this puzzle: how to apply all these lessons to create lasting peace and fulfillment, while still maintaining meaningful relationships with those who are receptive to change. By understanding these final points, you'll not only protect your own energy but also cultivate the kind of connections that truly matter. Now that we've explored how to recognize resistance, set boundaries, and redirect our energy, let's focus on the final and perhaps most transformative part: embracing freedom and creating meaningful connections without guilt or pressure. This is where everything we've discussed begins to take root in a way that truly enhances our lives. The first step is understanding that letting go is not giving up, it's a form of self-respect. When we stop trying to fix everyone around us, we make room for genuine, reciprocal relationships. I learned this the hard way. Early in my life, I spent years trying to help people who weren't ready, expecting gratitude or change in return. The constant frustration drained me and left little energy for myself or those who truly valued my support. Once I realized that my time and energy are precious, I began consciously choosing where to invest them. The difference was immediate. My stress levels dropped, and I felt a renewed sense of calm and purpose. Another powerful lesson is embracing acceptance. This doesn't mean you condone harmful behavior or ignore patterns that are detrimental to your well-being. Rather, it means acknowledging that you cannot control someone else's choices. For instance, if a family member repeatedly makes decisions that hurt themselves or others, we can set clear boundaries while accepting that the outcome is theirs to manage. I've found that acceptance releases a huge emotional burden. It's liberating to say, "I've done what I can, and the rest is up to you," without guilt or resentment. Alongside acceptance, cultivating gratitude changes our perspective. Instead of focusing on the people we couldn't change, we can celebrate the connections that are positive and nurturing. I make a conscious effort each day to appreciate friends who are present, family members who are supportive, and even simple interactions that bring warmth and laughter. Gratitude reminds us that our time and energy are best spent where they are valued and reciprocated. It's also essential to embrace patience, not only with others but with ourselves. Breaking old habits of trying to fix everyone takes time. We might still feel tempted to intervene or overextend ourselves, and that's natural. I often catch myself slipping back into old patterns, but I've learned to gently refocus on my principles: respect, boundaries, and self-care. Every time I honor those principles, I strengthen my own sense of autonomy and inner peace. Another key point is choosing quality over quantity in relationships. Later in life, I realized it's not about having a large circle of acquaintances or being needed by everyone. It's about cultivating a few deep, meaningful relationships that are mutually supportive and respectful. These are the friendships and connections that nourish your spirit, provide encouragement, and make life richer. By investing in these relationships instead of trying to fix everyone else, we create a life filled with genuine companionship and joy. Now, let's talk about the ultimate reward of this approach, emotional freedom. When we stop carrying the burden of trying to change others, we experience a profound sense of liberation. We no longer feel guilty for prioritizing our own needs, and we approach life with a lighter heart. I remember moments when I felt utterly drained from trying to rescue someone emotionally or intellectually. Once I let go, I felt a surprising sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. That feeling, my friends, is priceless, and it's available to anyone willing to respect their own boundaries and choices. Finally, applying these lessons consistently creates a life that feels intentional, peaceful, and full of joy. By respecting ourselves, setting boundaries, practicing acceptance, nurturing meaningful relationships, and releasing guilt, we align our lives with our values and priorities. Life becomes less about frustration and more about fulfillment. I've watched how this mindset transformed not only my relationships but also my outlook on aging. I feel lighter, more connected to what truly matters, and deeply grateful for every day I get to spend with people who value me as much as I value them. So, to sum it up, the journey from trying to fix everyone to living freely and intentionally involves recognizing resistance, setting healthy boundaries, offering support without attachment, embracing patience and acceptance, cultivating gratitude, focusing on quality connections, and ultimately enjoying the emotional freedom that comes from letting go. These steps may seem simple, but implementing them consistently is transformative. As you reflect on your own life, ask yourself, where have you been investing energy in people who aren't ready to change? And where could you redirect that energy to relationships and pursuits that bring genuine joy? It's never too late to start. You deserve to live a life free from unnecessary burdens and full of meaningful, nurturing connections. Remember, respecting your own boundaries and letting go of the need to fix everyone isn't selfish, it's wisdom earned through years of experience. By applying these lessons, you create space for peace, happiness, and a life that truly reflects your values. Here's to embracing freedom, nurturing the relationships that matter, and living a life full of intentional joy, no matter your age. Thank you for spending time with us today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned from this video and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your insights mean a lot to us and give us the motivation to keep spreading positivity and practical advice. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone you care about. Your support truly helps us continue creating meaningful content that informs, inspires, and uplifts. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.